Zaka Baruch, good morning. We're continuing. Well, it's great to be back. It's great to be back. Thank you. We'll explain on Shabbat B'ezrat Hashem the trip. It was an amazing trip, Baruch Hashem, with APAC. We're going to go back to a couple days of doing the Halaqaat, of the repetition of the Amida. Next week, B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to start with Halaqaat Pesach, because there's definitely a lot to learn before the onset of Pesach B'ezrat Hashem. So, when it comes to the Shaliach Tzibur, the Chazan that's repeating the Amida on behalf of the congregation, as we know, was instituted for those who maybe did not know how to pray particularly in every single word of the Amida, but we still nowadays we still do the repetition of the Amida. When we do the repetition of the Amida, that first line of Hashem Satai Tiftach Ufi Agiti Latecha should be said out loud even by the Chazan. Sometimes they don't, just so that we know. That is halakha number one, that line also needs to be said out loud. It should not be done silent. The next halakha is, imagine if someone needed to be chazan. Let's say they had a hiyuv. Let's say they had an obligation. For example, if some have the minhag, that if it's on the day that their parents passed away, they would go to be chazan if they're able to be chazan. And if they would come in late and they need to start the Amida by the repetition. Imagine, so Shacharit starts properly at 7 o'clock and the individual came in at 7:15 and he caught up, but he caught up to start his Amida by the repetition of the Amida, after the reading of the first Amida. What's allowed to be done, if obviously he asks whoever's in charge of the minyan, that he's allowed to get up and he's allowed to do his silent Amida simultaneous with the repetition of the Amida, but he's going to do it out loud, acting as the Chazan. Again, it's not an ideal situation, but if it needs to be done that way, it can be done that way. And in such a case, he's going to do his whole Amida out loud as the repetition for the Kahal, as his first Amida for himself. Even in that case, when it comes to the 3 steps back of Oseh Shalom Imrumav, he will do those 3 steps. Regularly, a Chazan does not do their 3 steps back. We say their 3 steps back is by Kaddish Titkabal, after Uval Etzion. But this individual, since it's his first Amida, that's when his 3 steps should be back. He will do them then. The last thing we're going to mention this morning is the halakha of sometimes when the time is limited, doing as we call a short Amida, meaning a short repetition. Instead of doing the whole Amida, everyone silent, and then repeating the whole Amida out loud, there's such a thing which is called a quick repetition, which would mean that the whole congregation would say the first 3 brachot out loud. Sorry, they'll say the first 2, then they'll do Kedusha, they'll do Nakdishah, and then they'll do Atah Kadosh, and then the rest will be done silent. This is allowed to be done for Shacharit, Mincha, Arvit there's never a case where we need it for Arvit because there's no repetition. It could be done for Musaf. Now, there's different traditions whether to do it or not. It's ideal not to, because then we are taking away from the whole purpose of what the repetition of the Amida was. But in cases where you're in dire need of time, for example, yesterday we were getting on an airplane right before Mincha time, and we had literally 10 minutes to pray Mincha. So quickly I scrambled, we found 10 people, Baruch Hashem, in Washington, D.C. in order to come back. We didn't have time to do the whole repetition of the Amida, because then we would have been late for the flight, and also if most people will not concentrate because it's in the airport, therefore we did a short Amida. There's certain cases where it's better to do a short Amida. Most cases it's better to do the full long repetition. And for us Faradim, we do the starting of the Amida with the Chazan. If you go by Ashkenazim, they listen to the first 2 brachot, they do Nakdishah, and then they start from the beginning when the Chazan continues Atah Kadosh. Us Faradim, our tradition is that we start at the same time with the Chazan, with the first 2 brachot, and then Kedusha, and then the rest of the Amida. We'll B'ezrat Hashem continue tomorrow. Tonight Mincha Arvit is at 6 p.m.